It's that time. Your fix is here. College football is a year-round discussion with these two. Here's JC and Morgan. Mike Morgan of ESPN and JC Shurburtt of 24/7 Sports have you covered. Beginning right now.
There we go. We were frozen for a second. At least I was. Welcome, everybody. It is JC and Morgan. Hope you're doing well. It is back to our regularly scheduled slot of Monday morning, December the 11th. Hope everybody is going well. We welcome everybody tuning in not only on Spotify, Google Play, iTunes, but also the video version where you can see our smiling faces on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter. It's I'm joining the visor parade, JC. Hope you don't mind. I'm not infringing on your wardrobe territory. I'm going with the Salt Life visor today. What you got going on there?
Sandlapper Outdoors. Company out of South Carolina, sponsor of Carolina Rise, the NIL Collective, and kind of some custom outdoorsy hats. They made the visor for me special because my head's too big for a hat, but they got some sweet hats. If you're a South Carolina fan, shop the Garnet line and money goes to NIL there. If not, just check out their other stuff, sandlapperoutdoors.com. But yeah, I don't think I'm going to be mad. Kirby Smart, if your hair hung over a little bit more, Mike, you may be some infringing on his look a little bit.
Oh, yeah, I do need a haircut.
That's the Kirby look now. Kirby's got the little visor shag like me.
Yeah.
I model everything after Kirby Smart, but it's one of those things. I texted a friend of mine one day that knows Kirby, and he was on the air on ESPN, and he was like in a suit with his hair all done perfectly and stuff, and I was like, where's the visor and hair, man? I've modeled my whole look after this guy. And he, of course, laughed, so it was funny. But anyway.
Spurrier's the guy that made it cool. I mean, I didn't own a visor until Spurrier. I remember interviewing Eli Drinkwitz, and I asked him, where does the visor – he goes, Spurrier, man, that's my guy.
Spurrier, Hugh Freeze, same way.
Hugh Freeze, yeah. They all looked at Steve back in the heyday wearing that visor and throwing it and tossing it and – but he had what some of the kids call pimp swag when he wore the visor, and so now you see a lot of coaches. And heck, if you're coaching in like the SEC in September and it's 98 degrees outside, you got to let that scalp breathe a little bit.
I know.
You got to let that scalp breathe. Now you've got a big dome, as you like to mention. I don't know what it's like in Chicago. In Atlanta, every now and then you'll see these cars driving around, and they've got this big video LED board on top of the car. And the car's not going anywhere in particular. It's just driving all around the city, and somebody pays the driver just to drive the LED board because that's great advertising, right? Now, I'm thinking with that head, right, you could do some sponsorship deals and just ride around Chicago.
I've pitched that to advertisers before on this show and the other one. I'm like, I will wear a visor with your logo on it or a beanie.
Yes.
I have a beanie. Our other sponsor that I've mentioned here, Titan Construction. I have a Titan Construction beanie that I've been wearing. And look, the beanie kind of hides all my hair and you can kind of see my face better, and it's appropriate for the weather up here. But those LED boards, Mike, I haven't seen those since. I mean, we know where they were popular is in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Of course, there's a lot of they're advertising some stuff.
27 strip clubs is what they advertise in Vegas, right?
It's one of those things, but I guess that's being popular. I don't get downtown enough to see exactly what the deal is here with that, but it wouldn't surprise me. And I think actually that's a pretty good gig. Like I would probably, if it came to it, I'd do it. That's not a bad gig at all.
I'd rather do that than be an Uber driver because you don't have to deal with people.
Yeah.
You don't have to deal with people going in and out of your car. And you hear, just the nightmare stories with Uber drivers, man. I mean, it's
getting bad. Yeah.
It's getting bad. It's getting Sometimes you question humanity when you hear stories from an Uber driver. That's for sure. We'll have plenty of humanity here. We run a family, very pro-humanitarian show on JC and Morgan. I got to say, first off, hats off to our audience. Last week we threw everybody a curveball, right? And I'd like to say we were smart enough to plan this. Honestly, it came down to scheduling conflicts with myself, really in the middle of doing a lot of games, both NFL and college basketball and, college football. The regular season is wrapped up now. But so we had to do a little bit of an audible, and we did Sunday morning, and we started at 11:30. And, of course, the committee came down with the decision a little after 12. So we did like a pregame. Then we had the actual game, right, when the committee selected the 4, and then we had a post-game reaction. We didn't really necessarily think of it in those terms, but that's how it went down. And we had incredible numbers. You folks loved it. So much good feedback that I've received from you out there on how that show was. And look, for me, it wasn't about projecting who was going to get in. I just said my thoughts on who I thought should get in. And yes, I had Alabama 4 and Florida State out. And I knew that was going to cause a storm, and it did. But that's what now, did I have full confidence the committee was going to do that? No, I didn't know that they would sack up and do that, because the easy way out, honestly, would have just been to put Florida State in and go on the old faithful. Well, they were undefeated Power 5, and undefeated Power 5s get in, and Alabama lost a game, and so therefore easy peasy. A closer look at everything tells you it's not that easy, because this is the first time we've ever had a Power 5 undefeated team that their most valuable player by leaps and bounds was going to be unable to play. And clearly that factored in. And as I mentioned on last week's show, the language is not the 4 best resumes, but the 4 best teams moving forward. And you just can't claim, if you watched Florida State versus Louisville, if you watched Florida State versus Florida, that they were remotely the same offense without Jordan Travis. I don't want to relitigate that, but I just thought it was, because then I wound up doing a week's worth of shows on 680 The Fan here in Atlanta, and found myself again, because I'm following the morning show, and those guys are yelling and screaming that it was an injustice and everything. Actually, 2 of the guys thought it was the right call, and 2 of the guys thought it wasn't. And that makes for good debate. I'm not being critical either way. Like I said, if you were one of those that were hell-bent that Florida State got robbed, that's okay. I'm not going to argue with you. I would have had no problem if Florida State got in. But they didn't, and so now we move forward. And again, the great thing about it is we're never going to be faced with that again. Not to that level. With a 12-team playoff, never going to be faced with that again. This past weekend, JC, we had the Army-Navy game, which that is a bucket list thing for me, and it should be a bucket list thing for every American. I don't want to just watch it on TV. I want to be there. I want to be in the stands for that, and one of these days I will. Congratulations to Army on winning the game. The Heisman Trophy came and went. I can now tell you who I voted for. I did indeed vote for Jaden Daniels. I held out my vote to the very last minute, including the conference championship games. If, for example, Carson Beck went crazy for Georgia and they won another game, he would have been in consideration for my vote. If Bo Nix went nuts and beat Washington and avenged an earlier loss, he would have been in consideration. Penix obviously was in consideration. But in the end, Jaden Daniels was the best player in college football. He just was. And it was a 3-loss team. That's okay. I voted for other 3-loss quarterbacks in the past, from Manziel to Tebow to RG3. I'm missing one. Lamar Jackson. Voted for him. That was a 3-loss Louisville team. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be on a playoff team to get a Heisman vote. And Jaden Daniels, I thought going in, he'd be the favorite out of the SEC. Of course, I also thought LSU would beat Alabama. I was wrong. Didn't know LSU wouldn't be able to defend anybody if their life depended on it. But he was magnificent. And as it turns out, I didn't think it'd even be close. He had 503 first-place votes. Penix had 292. What's interesting to me, JC, and I want your thoughts on this, and we will get to the JC5 and all the other good nuggets of this podcast that you've come to expect. What's interesting to me is with Jaden Daniels, the former Arizona State Sun Devil winning the Heisman. 5 out of the last 7 Heisman Trophy winners are transfers. Now, some of those were before the portal even existed and before NIL even existed. But now more than ever, and I'll go over some of the names on the transfer portal that still haven't announced where they're going. But Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, Joe Burrow, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, the only 2 out of the 7 that were homegrown products, so to speak, Devontae Smith of Alabama and Bryce Young of Alabama. Everybody else won the Heisman is in the portal, and here we sit where Cam Ward, Riley Leonard, Will Rogers in the portal. Dylan Gabriel already announced he's going from Oklahoma to Oregon. Blake Shapen going from Baylor to Mississippi State. Grayson McCall's in the portal. DJU is in the portal. Will Howard of K-State is in the portal. Holy smokes, we are living in the portal era, my friend.
Absolutely. And I got a nice little JC5 that ties in it from the NIL end. But that position, Mike, is very fluid. And I think the days of quarterbacks that have any chance at all to start, and even some that are already starting, as we found out this year, which is surprising to me, it's going to be a very mobile position because it's so important, as you always point out. If there's any doubt at all about who you have returning to take the starting job, if you have any doubt, you need to go. You'll go get that just to make sure. I mean, you got coaches getting fired after 2 years these days. There is no tomorrow in college football anymore. So if you can go save your season by landing a transfer quarterback, that'll happen. And I think the days of some of these teams, the Blue Bloods, loading up with 5 deep with 4-star quarterbacks, I think that's over. I think players at that position are now smart enough to realize if I go someplace else, I not only can win games, but I can set myself up to win a Heisman or whatever. But it's that position has been kind of in flux for a while in this sport, and it's just going to continue to do it. Now there's some things like Kyle McCord leaving and Dylan Gabriel leaving I was kind of surprised by, to be honest, this time around. But heck, most of these guys make good decisions, and the new fits, the new schools make sense, and they're going to where they can take advantage of an opportunity. So it's going to be interesting to see. In like high school recruiting, does this change things? Maybe a strategy. Do you sit there now and do you maybe take the guy that's going to give you 3 years to develop him to get that starting shot, or do you continue to recruit these guys that are there for a while, and if it doesn't look like they're going to start, they're out? I don't know. I mean, it's going to be interesting to watch and see the strategy moving forward at that spot.
Well, how many other Carson Becks are there going to be would be my question. Like, there's a guy that waited his turn and sat there on the bench behind Stetson Bennett, and even this year was not a guarantee to get the starting job, but certainly was the favorite and obviously won it. And now the question is whether or not he comes back for Georgia for another year. And
honestly, Mike, he wasn't ready. I mean, he wasn't ready to start. They would have been in trouble had he been the guy. But
you can't convince these kids that, right? You can't. Like, these kids, most of them, they don't look at it that way. They look at it as, well, maybe I'm not ready here, but I'll be ready somewhere else. I'm gone. Or it's just a pure money grab deal, which is what we're seeing more and more often, because a lot of those names I just mentioned, I mean, Cam Ward has been a stud at Washington State. Riley Leonard, a stud at Duke. Why are they leaving? They're not in jeopardy of losing their job. They're leaving based purely on profit. They're going for a bigger, better deal, and you're seeing that all over the place. So what the times of where I'm leaving because I need more playing time, that's not what this is all about. In more cases than not, when it comes to the quarterback position, it's I'm hitting the portal because I'm going to make more money here. Now, in some cases, look, if you got a chance to play for a national championship, even if the money's the same, then I get it. Like, that's tempting as well. But more often than not, it just seems like it's a little more about the coin. But we'll get to that more in the JC5. In fact, I'll just mention one other news note. Phil Parker did win the Broyles Award for the best assistant coach in college football. That's the Iowa defensive coordinator. Can anybody argue that he wasn't outstanding? He had an offense that was historically bad, and he kept Iowa in every game just about and had them in the Big Ten championship game. So kudos to Mr. Parker for the job that he did. FCS playoffs are going on. You might see the background for those of you that are watching on YouTube. This week, I chose beautiful Washington Grizzly Stadium on the campus of the Montana Grizz. That's right. The Montana Grizz are in the Final Four. You got North Dakota State. You got South Dakota State, which it seems like that's almost a given these days. And then we do have one surprise. University of Albany, JC, as a 5 seed, is in the Final Four. How about that?
Jared Verse from Florida State came from Albany.
That's right.
They're doing something right. What are they? The Retrievers or something?
You got me there.
But anyway, it's SUNY Albany, State University of New York at Albany. So that's interesting. Hey, 4 cold weather teams in the finals. Furman had their chances against Montana Friday. By the way, the Paladins from South Carolina, but. It's interesting how, as a lot of your powerhouse FCS schools from the South have ascended into FBS, be it the Sun Belt or Conference USA or whatever, it's interesting that they're the Great Danes, Phil says. Thank you, Phil.
Oh, even better.
Yeah.
Love that nickname. Where can I get some Great Danes swag? That's fantastic. What a great mascot.
But as that's happened, though, Mike, like you don't have an App State or a Georgia Southern or a James Madison anymore at that level, or Jacksonville State or a Troy. I mean, they're all at FBS. So that it's interesting how, the one area of the country that sort of avoided that with big state universities like Montana State, North Dakota, the South Dakotas, is up there kind of in the northern Rockies.
The Big Sky.
And so it's very weird that is the epicenter of FCS football, but those programs are all good. I mean, I'm looking at that Montana Stadium right now. That's a school that gets a lot of support. Montana State, same way. I know Idaho is back in FCS, and they were
in the playoff.
FBA were in the playoff, and there's just not a lot of Southern teams anymore. I mean, Furman is a power once upon a time, but it's a small private school. There's just not a lot in the South anymore to go up there and compete. So that's an interesting part of college football, that the powerhouse teams in that division now are up there in this big, vast, not densely populated part of the country.
I used to be more boned up on this, but it's to kind of maybe answer the question that lies from underneath all of that is, well, why not? Why haven't they? There used to be, and I think there still is, a requirement in terms of, like, that stadium you see behind me seats 25,000. I don't know if that's enough. You have to have a stadium that has a certain capacity. You have to have an average attendance over a 3-year span. Like, these used to be the rules. This is what the UCFs of the world. Remember Marshall was winning national titles with Randy Moss at 1AA. Imagine a 1AA defensive back looking across the line of scrimmage and seeing Randy Moss coming at you.
I think Eric Kresser from Florida was there.
Yes, Eric Kresser, a transfer from Florida, was one of the Chad Pennington, a future first-round pick. It was those schools wanted the FBS designation because, again, the money is there and you're on a bigger stage. But I don't know if the Montanas and the Dakota schools, if that's really in the cards for them. You're limited a little bit in terms of facilities, I guess, and finances. And they might be, quite frankly, just cozy where they are. You're playing for national championships instead of being a money grab game for a Power 5 school and losing, 56-3. That's, for every UCF that did that path and somehow made their way all the way to a Power 5 league like the Big 12, there's a lot of other stories of schools that were FCS powers, went FBS, and now they're virtually irrelevant.
Yeah, and that's sad. I think about a place like Georgia Southern, which Clay Helton's doing a really good job there. They win 7-8 games a year in a brutal Sun Belt conference. But, man, I mean, they used to be, when Irk Russell was there,
yeah,
they played the junkyard dog defense. I mean, they were winning natties. They had a running back named Adrian Peterson before the Adrian Peterson that we know that went to Oklahoma. It was really good. So it's App State. App State's still a pain in the bahunkus for a lot of teams that they play every year. But they used to play for national championships, and now they're like, oh, the Camellia Bowl, yay!
Yeah,
Myrtle Beach Bowl, baby. Yay! So that's the one drawback. Now people disagree with me about that all the time. I've always thought they should have stayed, or you should have a group of 5 playoff, something like that. But some people disagree. They think, oh no, you want to go to FBS and do whatever. So that's good.
All that being said, you have waited for it. The morale of a great nation depends on it. It is time once again for the JC5.
It's time for the top topics in the sport. We bring the JC5. Number one.
All right,
Number
Mike,
one.
Number one. Let's get your annual take on bowl games, Mike, because I think it's almost like a PSA. Why are there so many bowl games? Why are there so many bad matchups? Just break it down for everybody, man. It's all about the TV viewing audience, and that's it.
Yeah, look, there's 41 of these. There's a talk show guy out of Charlotte. I'm not going to mention his name. And for like 15 years, his hot take is, there's too many bowl games. I can't stand it. It bothers me that there's so many bowl games. Like that's supposed to be his really big-time hot take. And the answer from people like me are always, well, then don't watch. It's like, what do you want? You gonna watch the Hallmark? You gonna watch a movie on Hallmark? You're gonna do a little cuddle time and sit there and watch the story of the lonely housewife that falls in love with the mailman? Would that be better TV for you? If you don't like it so much, quit your bitching and watch something else, or read a book. Do something. The actual reason that you do this is absolutely these make money. But Mike, I see a bunch of empty seats. Doesn't matter. They rate well. There's nothing else going on in the sports world when these games are running. So when you put on a Myrtle Beach Bowl, for example, on a Monday at 3 o'clock, that is the one sporting event going on, and people do watch. So, and it means a lot. Here's the one thing I like about those bowl games is that, when I've broadcasted those bowl games and you sit down with players and coaches, you could tell it means everything to them. It means absolutely everything to them. The Cure Bowl, the Myrtle Beach Bowl, the First Responders Bowl. They're not worried about opting out. They're not worried about NIL money. They're not worried about the transfer portal. They're just happy to compete. You say that you're discouraged by the game looking more and more like the NFL, and it's not about the love of the game. Well, for these kids, it actually is the love of the game. So enjoy it. Soak it up. Doesn't matter if you don't know a single player on the team. If the announcers are doing their job, they're giving you reasons to be interested in certain players. And then there's the gambling component. Let's not be naive. That's a big part of the whole thing. A lot of people are treating bowl pools the way we've treated March Madness brackets for decades. That's a thing. Or whether or not so-and-so can cover the 3.5. That's always been a thing, and that's not going away. So give me 60 bowl games. I don't care. Does anybody, when college football ends, goes, thank goodness I couldn't take any more games? Hell no. You get sad. You get morose. You want the damn season to keep going because college football makes you happy. Bowl games should make you happy. So if you're complaining about it, I don't know what to tell you. Just find something else to do. And if you just don't like the matchups and the sponsors and the this and the that, read a book.
I think they could tweak the spot. I think they could tweak the matchups a little bit. I think they could make, and I think we're past the point where it's this big post. Like, it doesn't always mean you had a successful season, right?
No,
I do think that 6-6 MAC teams getting in over four win SEC teams. I mean, I think they draw even better ratings because regardless of the record, I mean, you don't think Tennessee fans are going to show up in Montgomery for the Camellia Bowl, or at least tune in. You're talking about large fan bases. That would be my recommendation. Sort of like what they're doing with the NIT. They finally eliminated the automatic qualifier for the mid, because the NIT was becoming basically the mid-major invitational. But, then again, is that fair? I don't know. I mean, maybe, I think that there's ways you can tweak it. And certainly as the playoff expands, there may need to be something to look at there. But I'm with you, man. Give me all the college football I can get. We wait all year for this sport. You don't have that many games. It has the fewest number of opportunities to see your team play or any team play in any major sport. 12 games. That's all you're guaranteed. And so I think Bulls are here to stay. And you're never going to hear me complain there's too many Bulls.
Unlike let's just say a 5-7 SEC team did get in this year. They didn't, as we know. But, if it wasn't for James Madison and Jack State finally getting their waiver or whatever, then it would have been probably next up SEC after Minnesota got it based on some ridiculous APR formula. A 5-7 SEC team is probably not going to be that happy to be there. A 5-7 SEC team is going to have opt-outs, and probably a good deal of them. When you watch a team from the MAC, the Sun Belt, Conference USA, ain't nobody opting out. This is the pinnacle for them. So at least I know. Yeah, at least I know I got a team at full strength. At least I know I got a team that's all in, and the competition on the field is going to mean something. It's not an exhibition to them. It truly is a huge, huge deal for the players in those minor bowl games, which will start in earnest next week.
Number 2.
All right, Lincoln Riley. Looks like he's cereal. I'm sorry, that's from a South Park episode where Al Gore was like, I'm cereal instead of serious. Looks like he's serious.
What they get away with on that show never ceases to amaze me, and quite frankly, it brings a smile to my face.
That and Family Guy. I mean, I'm like,
oh yeah.
Jeez. Anyway,
say anything when it's a cartoon. You're uncancelable if you're animated.
Yeah. So remember Brad bragging on DeAnton Lynn, who was the DC at UCLA. I mean, it's hard to be a good D coordinator with Chip Kelly and his offense and all that. And UCLA played great defense all year long. And then all of a sudden, boom, the crosstown rival just takes their coordinator, just cuts their heart out. 30 minutes away. You just, come on. And then over the weekend, he hired, speaking of North Dakota State, he hired Matt Entz, who is the North Dakota State head coach, to be the assistant head coach for defense and linebackers coach. You never know how these things are going to work out. Sometimes if you have a situation that's a little bit cultural with your program, it doesn't matter who you hire. And I'll throw the Texas Longhorns under Charlie Strong and Tom Herman in that category. And until this year under Steve Sarkisian, but Texas looks like they finally got it together, obviously. But sometimes it doesn't matter who you hire. But I think these moves are really the type of moves that are going to pay off for him. I think Lynn, it was kind of a hidden gem that Chip Kelly found. Hats off for him for getting him. He's a Pac-12 guy. Surprisingly enough, UCLA was really, really good on defense. And then the head coach at North Dakota State, Matt Entz. I mean, obviously those guys know a thing or two about playing defense. So just kind of looking at it on paper, and you don't play them on paper, I think Lincoln Riley's back was a little bit against the wall on that side, and it looks like he's got two very, very good solutions lined up to take the Trojans defense to the next level.
Excuse me. I think the hire makes all the sense, in the world. And obviously, you feel a little bit for North Dakota State. It falls back in line with what we were talking about earlier. I mean, you just can't compete with the money of the big boys. And Southern Cal is shelling out money. They don't have oil in L.A., but they got a lot of money with that program. That being said, JC, I was thinking about this when I saw the news. I was thinking about Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma. You think maybe they hired some good defensive coaches in Norman during the time he was there? You think maybe they had some good, talented players on the defensive side when he was there? And yet, I can't think of any great defenses he had. So sometimes the problem is not everybody around you. The problem is you. And I just wonder if you're Lincoln Riley, you can only make so many moves and fire so many defensive coaches and coordinators before it all starts pointing back to you And Oklahoma fans are probably sitting there going, we've seen this movie before. The defense is not a thing. And the offense is all about scoring quick, and the defense is back out on the field. It's not complimentary football. All the same things that you heard at Oklahoma, you're hearing now with the Trojans. So, I mean, kudos to the move. You hired a great coach in Matt Entz. I don't know how much that fixes things.
I'm with you there, Mike. And I think he needs to call up Coach Spurrier and be like, hey, look, when you hired Stoops, what did you do, and how did that elevate the Gators? And Spurrier actually cared about defense a lot more than people thought. He didn't really get into it. He's just like, get off the field so I can get my offense back up there. But he finally, after being okay, not great on defense, kind of right before they won it all in '96, you made that right move with Stoops, and the rest is history. So, who knows? Who knows what'll happen there, but I'm definitely with you on that.
Number 3.
Okay, Tulane, I think if you're going to lose Willie Fritz, this is a great hire. John Summerall from Troy, 23-4 as the head coach at Troy, replaced Chip Lindsey 2 years ago and immediately started winning. I believe they won the Sun Belt this year. He's a guy that was up for the Mississippi State job. I thought that would be a good direction for Mississippi State to go. Was an assistant at Kentucky under Mark Stoops, played at Kentucky. Great hire for the Green Wave. That said, and I know Stoops did not go to A&M, but that said, if Stoops did go somewhere, Tulane's going to be right back to the drawing board, because I believe strongly he's the next guy at UK. He played there. It makes total sense. But hats off to Tulane for saying, hey, we want to keep this thing rolling, and we're going to go hire the best coach we can.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's a great hire. He was the DC there from 2012 to 2014, and in the last couple of years as the Troy head coach, 23-4 back-to-back Sun Belt championships. He's only 41. That's a heck of a resume. I'm a little surprised. I mean, I know people that went to Troy, and I've been there, and I know that fan base and how they bleed college football. I mean, they're all in. And it's not FCS. This is Sun Belt, which you could make the argument the Sun Belt has surpassed the American as the top non-power conference in college football. Is this a money deal? Like, did Tulane win a bidding war to keep Coach Summerall? Because although Coach Fritz did great work with Tulane before that, Tulane is a little bit uneven, and at times there are a lot of questions about the financial commitment to football at that program. So somebody must have stepped up in the fundraising department at Tulane, is my guess. So I don't really know if this is a better job, quite honestly. But yeah, he makes the move.
It's interesting. It is. And is it, or it is interesting. What it does tell me is, Katrina was 18 years ago. I think Tulane is all the way back financially. You remember they struggled for a long, long time after that happened. So good for them. And I think it's a heck of a hire. And you just better hope Mark Stoops doesn't go anywhere.
Well, that's a whole other. Didn't mean to step on you, announcer guy. As a whole other can of worms, that the Stoops thing, because that doesn't just go away. You clearly were entertaining leaving, and for all we know, he was as good as gone before some people at A&M said, no, that's not exactly who we want.
Yeah, he told people he was like.
Yeah. So I mean, you are the guy in a relationship that clearly showed heavy interest in another woman, and then all of a sudden the other woman said, "No, I like you as a friend." And then you go back to your main squeeze. You're like, "Honey, I told you I love you. Let's go to the movies." that doesn't just go away with time. So I think next year is going to be very interesting in Lexington.
4.
Okay, so in the NIL world, Mike, there's a lot of BS out there that gets propagated by, people on Twitter, the media. I mean, the other day, one of the NFL guys that does a good job reporting talked about like Marvin Harrison Jr. getting $25 million to come back. I'll tell you this right now. As much as I love Marvin Harrison Jr., if somebody gives him that much money to come back and play college football at Ohio State, they are absolutely stupid. I mean,
of course, and that's just not an accurate figure.
That's just dumb. That said, the going rate for accomplished quarterbacks, and Matt Rule mentioned this, and he's right, is between 750 and seven figures. You're a quarterback guy. You're a believer that, you're only as good as the guy under center in most cases. You just mentioned 5 out of the last 7 Heisman Trophy winners are transfer quarterbacks. Is it worth that? Is it worth that much monetarily? I would lean toward yes, but what do you have to say?
I would emphatically say yes. And, when Coach Rule mentioned those figures, there were a lot of people like, oh, what? Well, apparently they weren't listening to JC and Morgan, because we've been telling you the average rate in a conference like the SEC is 7 figures. In fact, I would love, again, they don't open the books, so we just have to go on reports. But I would wager that in 2024, there will be much more starting quarterbacks in the SEC that are making $1 million and beyond versus quarterbacks that are not. So if you're an established guy or just a ridiculous blue chip recruit like the kid at Tennessee or like an Arch Manning at Texas, you're making 7 figures. Whether it's Kentucky, South Carolina, Florida, Georgia, I mean, these kids are all making 7 figures as the quarterback. So yeah, I mean that's just the new normal. If you're going to play quarterback in Michigan, Ohio State, you're making 7 figures. Florida State, Clemson, you're making 7 figures. Southern Cal, you're making 7 figures. I mean, that's where we are. And that's why you see the names that I just mentioned, the guys that are they've already got the job. They're already like big man on campus. They're already making NIL money, but they know they can make more somewhere else. That is, folks, this is the NFL in a college football world. We're using the NFL template, except in the NFL, and you're a free agent and you sign a contract with somebody else, you don't just get to skip town 9 months later for another deal. And I realize you have to technically get an appeal, and then you claim that you have mental health issues, and then the NCAA will buckle 9 times out of 10, or maybe 99 out of 100. But you have to honor contracts in the NFL, or they'll cut your rear end, and it's not guaranteed money. I don't know how we're doing things in NIL world of college football, but it seems like it is beyond player friendly, and the player can kind of stick it to the man. But if you don't pay, you're not going to compete. You just, at the highest levels, you're just not going to. So if you try to be like, well, we don't do things that way here. So the scholarship is the thing. You're going to get outdone in that, and that's one position you do not want to get outdone in. You just don't want to go. You don't want to lowball for the quarterback spot, because it's really hard to win games in college football if you don't have a guy at that position. It's almost impossible. You could do everything else really, really well. If you don't have a guy at that position, it's going to be really hard.
Number 5.
One school that did not have a guy at that position last year was Nebraska. Kyle McCord, according to, speculation and the Vegas odds, appears to be heading to Lincoln. I think this is a huge mistake, and I'll tell you why. The offensive coordinator at Nebraska is really good at convincing guys to come, and things don't get any better. Because I saw him do it at South Carolina when he had a revolving door of transfers and whatnot and hurt guys one year, and then the next year he had Spencer freaking Rattler, and things did not get any better until the end when he basically had had training wheels put on his offense. That said, I think McCord's the type of guy that, in theory, if he can master whatever this guy thinks he wants to do, That's a big, huge upgrade from like Jeff Sims and everybody they had last season. So I'm not going to wish ill will on Nebraska fans. If he goes, that's great for them. I'm happy. But man, oh man, you want to talk about like not a fit compared to, the Ohio State offense, which is obviously very quarterback friendly. I just don't know. I don't know what the thought process is there. Because Nebraska's got money, but I don't know that they can outbid Ohio State. I mean, so that's just interesting there. Your thoughts on McCord to the Huskers?
Yeah, I mean, even if you had the Broyles Award winner as your offensive coordinator at Nebraska, you're going to leave Ohio State for Nebraska? Something with this one seems like, to quote Greg Sankey, one thing is not like the other. This one seems unique. This one, I don't know if Ohio State might not have given, and I don't know their backup. I don't know what their quarterback room looks like. I'm sure they got a 5-star sitting there, in the program. I don't know who he is. But this was a guy who at times was really good and at times was not so good, with a ridiculously talented receiving core and the best wideout in college football. So I just wonder, you're Ryan Day. You've lost 3 straight to Michigan. That's everything to those fans. You don't beat Michigan, you don't keep your job. Just ask John Cooper. And I just wonder if maybe, what does he do to save his job? You fire some coaches. That's what everybody does, right? Fire assistants. It's not my fault. It's their fault. They're the ones that didn't do the job. And then maybe you just kind of plant a seed like, it's McCord. He's good, but I don't know if he's ready for the big time. We got better. Don't worry, we got better options coming down the pike. And maybe McCord kind of gets wind of that. And maybe he says, okay, I'm not wanted here like I was. I have no idea if that's true. It's either one or the other. It's either McCord wants to leave a ridiculously elite program and lost 1 game this year and has plenty of NIL money, or maybe he saw some tea leaves and said, okay, I'm not wanted here. I got to find somewhere else to go. Now, why Nebraska? We know Nebraska's got a ton of money. And so somebody sold him that, if that's where he winds up going, which, again, that's not confirmed. But, yeah, that's the one that's just like eye-popping. All the other ones I'm kind of getting used to, but the McCord one, that smells a little bit different to me, JC.
I feel you there. Well, that was a heck of a JC5.
That was a heck of a JC5. That was a heck of an opening segment. We're going to take a heck of a timeout. We'll come back. We'll go around the Southeastern Conference. It's JC and Morgan.
Down here in the South, we don't always see eye to eye. While our taste in college football teams, or what sauce, if any, goes best on a rack of ribs, or what to mix with our Dixie vodka might be up for debate, we can all agree there's nothing better than a Southern tailgate. And like our favorite college teams, our ingredients come from small towns and big cities. They're grown in Southern soil, are crafted by Southern hands, and proudly represent the South in our backyard and beyond. So raise a glass of Dixie Southern Vodka to celebrate being made in America and raised in the South.
South Carolinians, this message is for you, as well as for people in Georgia, Florida, and Tennessee. If you think you may need work done to your roof or a new roof altogether, there's one simple name to remember: Elite Roofing and Restoration. South Carolina native Jeremy Johnson has been helping people in the South make sure they have the very best people checking on and building new roofs for over 25 years. Fully licensed, bonded, and insured, they provide the best service possible. Call or email today, 678-781-1998. That's 678-781-1998, or you can go to EliteRoofingGA.com. Schedule a no-hassle, free inspection today. Wind damage, hail damage, or just wear and tear. Don't settle for second best. Let Jeremy Johnson and Elite Roofing and Restoration take care of it all for you today.
Hey, this is Mike Morgan, and like many of you, I love staying active. It makes me feel better. It helps me enjoy a better life. But whether you're a world-class athlete or someone just keeping the dream alive like me, you'll want to make sure you have someone who can handle the injuries that are going to arise. That's where the world-renowned Dr. Michael Hatrack of Synergy Sports Wellness and Synergy Release Sports come into play. He's been my guy for nearly a decade, and he has served thousands of people, including over 400 NFL players, over a career that spans 47 years. Yeah, he's that good. And his staff's personalized biomechanical treatments and therapies can handle it all. Back pain, knee pain, shoulder pain. We all know the injuries, but few know the solutions the way Dr. Hatrack and his terrifically trained staff do. I've seen others. No one delivers the results the way they do. That's why people from all over the country come to Synergy's 2 Georgia locations, Buckhead and Alpharetta. Dr. Hatrack has trained a team of chiropractors in his proprietary technique that has been proven to yield life-changing outcomes from professional athletes to the Joe Schmoes of the world like, well, me. Check out the website to set up an appointment today, SynergyReleaseSports.com. That's Synergy with an S, ReleaseSports.com. You can also find a link for them on our website, jcandmorgan.com. Let the incredible staff at Synergy take care of you so you can reach your wellness goals.
Let's get in the RV and take a drive around the SEC.
Yeah, let's do that, shall we? Drive around the SEC, presented by Elite Roofing. Jeremy Johnson and the great crew there have you covered no matter where you're listening to us from. South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, parts of Tennessee. Go ahead and check out the website, eliteroofingandrestoration.com. Free, F-R-E-E, free consultation to see what you need, whether it's a roof or, again, whether you're doing some work in and around the house. They can take great care of you, as they have for me for several years. So we got 9 SEC teams in bowl games. Let's take a look at them, shall we? Cotton Bowl is in Arlington. That's Missouri, Ohio State. Now, again, if there's no opt-outs and the teams are motivated, that's a great matchup. That's a lot of fun, that game. Hopefully that'll be the case. December the 29th, 8 o'clock ESPN, the Cotton Bowl. The Orange Bowl in Miami. Now we're talking the best of the non-playoff teams. There's a whole lot of talk here in Atlanta. You know, is Ladd McConkey going to play? Is Brock Bowers going to play? Nobody's officially opted out yet, but McConkey, if you watch that SEC championship game, was hobbled, barely move. They are not the same offense without him. I know he's not going to be a first-round draft pick. He will be in the NFL. They are not the same offense without Ladd McConkey. But Georgia, Florida State, again, if both teams are fully engaged, both coaches already blew off a press conference. But if Georgia and Florida State are engaged in the Orange Bowl in Miami, December the 30th at 4 o'clock Eastern Time, that will be a lot of fun. So will the Peach Bowl right here in Atlanta. Ole Miss, Penn State, December the 30th. Now, I know Ole Miss is engaged. My wife is a friend of an assistant coach at Ole Miss, and I can tell you they are happier than a pig in slop to take the trip to the ATL and play a prominent program from the Big Ten in this game. Penn State, much like their uniforms, it's hard to get a vibe other than vanilla. They keep winning games and keep losing to the 2 teams they need to beat to make any progress. But that's December the 30th. That's the Peach Bowl. And, of course, the Rose Bowl in beautiful Pasadena, California. Alabama against Michigan. Here's what I know about Nick Saban. He's always got his guys engaged. I mean, you don't opt out. Remember, last year, Bryce Young, Will Anderson, after the disappointment of not making the playoff, those 2 guys who were going to be top 10 picks easily could have opted out. Neither one of them did. That's a cultural thing. When you think so, I mean, that's culture that Nick has instilled over years in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, they very rarely have opt-outs for bowl games. No, yeah, you're right. They played and they beat Kansas State's butt pretty good in the Sugar Bowl. So they exercised the Sugar Bowl demons last year because we remember the losses to Oklahoma and Utah when they've ended up there. But no, the opt-outs don't really happen in Alabama. So I think that does speak to that. And we'll watch Georgia, too. I think that what you said, like, there's a difference between opting out if you just don't want to play, you want to go get ready for the NFL or whatever, and then but opting out or not wanting to risk further injury. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So that's something to watch with Georgia, too. But, we'll see what happens with that.
Now the quote-unquote lesser games. call this Tier 2. The Texas Bowl, that's played in Houston. Texas A&M versus Oklahoma State. What is Texas A&M going to look like in this game? I mean, their interim coach has done some nice things. And like is usually the case, the players rallied around him. I want him to be the guy. He was never going to be the guy.
He's gone now. I guess he's still coach.
I don't know.
Syracuse's new defensive coordinator.
So he probably already left then, right?
Maybe.
I don't know.
I see. I
we'll have to look that up.
I know he got the job, but I don't know if he. I mean, I don't know if he's coaching the ball or not. So
well, either way, I mean, every time I look at the transfer portal, it's another former 5-star, 4-star guy that is leaving A&M. Mm-hmm. When you build a culture based on the bag, as opposed to players that maybe love to play for that school, this is what happens, right?
Oh, take the money and run. Yeah, some schools, South Carolina, everybody's butthurt about Juice Wells leaving because he got money last year and hit the portal. Think if you were A&M, the investment you made in that class a couple of years back, and half of them are gone.
How much money did they spend on all these linemen that are leaving that didn't equate to a whole lot of wins on the field? I mean, you want to talk about a lack of ROI, return on investment. There ought to be an article on that, like in the Athletic or something. What Texas A&M spent, those 2 classes or whatever it was, I mean, well into the millions. It was well known. They were getting the checkbook out. A, what did they get? And B, they certainly didn't get loyalty. They're all gone. They're all leaving. It's crazy.
That's you got to be careful with it, and that's what I've been saying. The schools that really are just senselessly spending money are not in good shape. And there's a couple of them out there, and you can tell. When they play, they don't have any heart. They look like Tarzan, play like Jane half the time. Mm-hmm. The schools that are continuing to win, like your Alabamas and Georgias and Michigans and Ohio, they have a system. Like their NIL, it's not. You don't hear much about their NIL at all, but they have a system to kind of take care of everybody, and everybody's happy, and it's still all about the team, even though there is some money being spent. So that's right. Let that be an example for everybody out there that thinks they can buy their way to a title. Not in this sport, not in college football.
The Tax Slayer Gator Bowl. So we got the Tax Act Texas Bowl and the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl. Which is better, Tax Act or Tax Slayer? JC, that's the question that everybody tuned in today for.
I've never heard of Tax Act, so I'll go with Slayer. Slayer sounds better, too. It's like that heavy metal band from the 90s, Slayer.
Yeah, that's a metal band. I don't think Tax Act could roll out there with, Slash playing the guitar. Mm-hmm. Tax Act is more like a John Denver vibe. Hey, we're Tax Act. We're here. We're gonna play a few songs and hope you guys like it. Tax Act. Tax Act, Texas Bowl, Texas A&M, Oklahoma State, Tax Slayer, Gator Bowl, Kentucky, Clemson. Dabo Swinney has rallied the troops. They seem engaged. Kentucky had their coach flirt with Texas A&M. They're coming off the big win over Louisville. Maybe they can sustain that momentum. That'll be December the 29th at noon.
Lots of defense in that game, I think. Lots of defense.
Yeah.
And I'll say this, it's kind of interesting, Mike, to mention South Carolina again. And this doesn't mean anything. It's just kind of a random occurrence. So last year, South Carolina played Tennessee and Clemson, last 2 regular season games. Tennessee and Clemson are matched up in the bowl. This year, South Carolina plays Kentucky and Clemson back-to-back games. Kentucky and Clemson are matched up in the bowl. I know that means nothing, but it's still a weird coincidence.
It is a weird coincidence, yes.
Fourth time Kentucky's played Clemson in a bowl game that I can recall, unless there was something like pre-1980 that I'm missing. But I think Clemson's won 2 and Kentucky's won 1. Tommy Bowden crapped his pants in the Music City Bowl against them one year when Andre Woodson was the quarterback, and then Dabo beat them one year again in the Music City, and then this is the first time in a Gator.
So much of for the fan base, I think, is the locale. I mean, if you're going to these cities, you want good weather and stuff to do. So, no offense to, again, Shreveport, but like cities like Jacksonville, Tampa, Nashville, Orlando, I mean, these are cool spots to go. Mm-hmm. So, I for fans that want to go to games, like this is, again, make a little vacation out of it near the holidays. That was the whole reason bowls were born to begin with. If you go back to the history of the bowl games, it wasn't like some complex, how do we crown a champion in college football? Yeah. It was a marketing opportunity, and that's the whole genesis of the bowl game itself before we wound up with 41 of them. Music City Bowl. I'll be in Nashville this weekend, JC. Nice. Your former stomping grounds, calling the Titans Texans game. So you got C.J. Stroud, who's been a stud, and Will Levis. For those that thought Will Levis was a bum because Kentucky couldn't block a soul and didn't have a wide receiver that could do much, Will Levis has actually played really well. Like he's looking the part. So that'll be a fun matchup with a couple of guys that were big storylines in college. This one will have Auburn and Maryland. So you have one Taglialova, and you have Auburn, Preston Thorne, coming off that devastating meltdown against Alabama. That'll be December 30th, 2 p.m. in the Music City. I
kind of think, Mike, in your first year coaches, bowls are a little more important, I think. I mean, Auburn's sitting at 6-6. I don't know if playing Bama close like that, watch the stench off the New Mexico State loss or not, but you go, Maryland started hot and then went to crap and then got better. You win this one, you're 7-6. I remember when Hugh Freeze came to Ole Miss, they were like 3-9 the year before, and I don't think they won a conference game. Well, they eked it out to 6-6. I think they won the Egg Bowl, and then went to the Birmingham Bowl and brought like 30,000 to the Birmingham Bowl, which is a terrible bowl. And they won it. I think they beat Pitt or somebody, and that gave them a lot of momentum. So I think if you're Auburn, the bowl games don't always matter, in terms of what you do the next season. But I think this is a really important one for them to get. I think go beat a really good Maryland team and get to 7-6 and keep recruiting like you are, because that's going to be your way back.
It's interesting to me that sometimes it's hard to get a consensus on how you think a coach is going to do at a particular spot. I can't find anybody that doesn't think Hugh Freeze is not going to be successful. That might be a triple negative. They all believe Hugh Freeze is going to do a good job at Auburn. Like, I can't find many people like, nah, he's out of his league, or nah, that was a fluke at Ole Miss, or he did it at Liberty, but he's not. They all think that A, home run hire, B, going to bring good things to Auburn. And somewhere Gus Malzahn is sitting there and lighting up a cigar from his plush recliner in the UCF coaching office and going, you think it's easy? Try beating Bama 3 times like I did, kids. Try winning 69% of your games like I did, and then getting fired by the Auburn brass. Try keeping that Yellowwood guy healthy. Good luck with that, guys. That's terrible Gus Malzahn impersonation. Talks nothing like that, but I just thought I wanted to go into character there, JC.
That is good. He gets in his Rolls Royce and drives to practice at UCF, where everybody's. I think UCF's in the Gasparilla Bowl, Mike. Again. And I think they sold out I got an email. I think they sold out their ticket allotment in like 30 minutes.
Well, heck, that's an hour and a half drive across I-4.
6-6, first year in the Big 12. That's a good start, man. It's a good start.
Yeah. They got off to a really rough start before they got it going. I think UCF will be a player in that league before too long. ReliaQuest Bowl. This will forever, in my heart, be the Outback Bowl, having covered a number of those over the years, and getting the complimentary blooming onions. It was always fun to see how much food you could stuff in your face at halftime before doing play-by-play for the second half and not sounding like you just ate a whale. But LSU is against Wisconsin in that ball game, January the 1st. That is at noon.
Feel bad for the
LSU.
Badgers. I feel bad for the Badgers. I mean, at least LSU's not that great on defense, but man, I guess Daniels opted out.
I haven't heard an opt-out. I mean, it's
now if he
got
doesn't
3 weeks.
Play, it could get interesting. LSU owes Wisconsin one because I think the year Les got fired, they went up and they played Wisconsin at Lambeau Field and lost. So they owe the Badgers a smack in the face, I think. And I thought Wisconsin did not have a good year under Luke Fickell. I thought changing up the offense like that was just that really gets away from who you are DNA wise. I guess who didn't get away from their DNA no matter what against all
Iowa.
The whole college football world laughing at them is Iowa. They didn't get away from that. They
did not.
They didn't spit the bit, man. So
they did not.
You know,
well,
sometimes,
I think it's a matter of like, okay, Wisconsin and Iowa for a long time were in a similar boat in that always win more games than you lose, always get to bowl games, always beat the teams you're supposed to beat, but never beat the teams that you need to beat to get to the next level. And so Wisconsin said, you know what, enough of this. We're not going to just be University of Ground and Pound. We are going to do a 180. Phil Longo, come on down. And I didn't expect it to yield great results in year one. Now, will they all of a sudden start getting elite playmakers at quarterback and wide receiver, which you have to if you're going to truly make that transition?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know. Madison is another bucket list place for me, JC. I've never been.
I've never been for a game. I did go through there. It was during the pandemic, and a friend of mine's dad had pancreatic cancer. Unfortunately, he passed away. So Nat and I one day, since it was a couple-hour drive, we couldn't get out and see him or anything, but we brought some shakes and stuff and a Portillo's chocolate cake, you know, for the family. Ooh. And set him on his porch. Just one day. It was actually during the game day, and I think it was actually the day that South Carolina lost to Ole Miss and Will Muschamp was fired the next day. I remember that. But we drove up and we went through Madison and saw the daggum campus. And Mike, it's beautiful. I mean, it's beautiful. It's like if the University of South Carolina was like Columbia was on Lake Murray, because you get off the interstate, you go, and then you go across this big, gigantic, beautiful lake. And Madison is just sitting up on the hill.
Yeah.
Like in all its glory. And they call it Camp Randall Stadium because that was an old Army camp back in the day. It was a Camp Randall. So it's and then we know some Wisconsin fans, they're nut jobs. So it's a hell of an atmosphere. You know?
I mean, I love everything about it. That's why it's on my bucket list.
Kegs and eggs, all those 11 o'clock kickoffs, man.
Yeah, man.
You got to get to the party at 7 a.m., man. Kegs and eggs. So
they are the definition of one of those programs I'd love to see competing in the playoff for a national championship. Like I'd love to see a Wisconsin take that next step. I think it'd be great for the sport, but they just can't get over that hump. Last one, the 9th SEC team to be bowling. The game that I had a chance to call last year, the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl in Orlando. Tennessee, Iowa. That'll be on January the 1st and 1 p.m. Tennessee, Iowa.
We still see Joe Milton down there in his hometown? Or
I don't know, man.
We're going to see the new kid? I mean, I doubt Iowa scores a whole lot in this one, but if Joe Milton's not on as good as Iowa is on defense, it could be a 10-7 kind of ball game. So, hey, look, I'll say this: if you're a Tennessee fan out there, and I know we got several that listen, you really this season had some disappointing moments, and sure, you hope to compete, and everybody talked up Georgia, this, that, and the other. They're going to beat Georgia finally and get over the hump. It just wasn't the time for it right now, especially the key to the season was Milton's accuracy. He was not accurate. I think that pretty much doomed you to 10-4 or 8-4, but you're still in the Citrus Bowl. You know, that's a great third year. You know, you've gone Music City, Orange, and Citrus now. It's a great start. Great first 3 years under Josh Heupel. Just keep recruiting and your time will probably come.
Yeah, I thought I said at the very beginning of the year, I thought this would be a bit of a setback because you were going to miss those wide receivers and you were going to miss Hendon Hooker. And people saying things like Joe Milton's the most talented quarterback in college football. I never bought into that. I don't care if he can throw it 80 yards. If you can't hit a 12-yard out, you're going to lose games. And he was wildly inaccurate. There were games this year where he was truly Nuke LaLoosh, to make a Bull Durham reference, and he was hitting the bull. He was nowhere near the plate. And that's been the book on him since he was at Michigan. But they've got a kid that, how much NIL money is their backup making right now?
A lot of rumors about that.
A lot of rumors.
I don't know. It's like
insane figures thrown out there.
Big figures.
It's got two commas and a different integer than one before the first one, right? That's the rumor.
Yeah. He's a really good player. Live arm, probably. I mean, Hendon Hooker was freakishly accurate down the field, and that's really what made that thing go. But, look, the one positive you take out of your Tennessee is, Mike, they got a lot better on defense this year. A lot.
Tons. Yeah.
I mean, and they got a good young defensive line. They've had defensive backs. They're good at linebacker. So if you take a positive away from the season, hey, you got that side of the ball heading in the right direction.
The head scratcher, especially now, knowing what we know now about Florida, is how did they go down to the swamp and just lay an egg? They laid a complete egg. That was
weird, man, because Florida just ran it all over them, and I think Etienne or Johnson won at 172 yards, and Tennessee did not play that well. It was one of those games.
By far and away the biggest win for Florida this year. Last little note around the SEC, but with Jaden Daniels winning the Heisman at LSU, that's 5 out of the last 7 from the SEC. Daniels, Bryce Young, Devontae Smith, Joe Murray, and yes, I'm going to include Baker Mayfield, since Oklahoma, well, both are now in the SEC. The two non-SEC affiliated winners, Kyler Murray of Oklahoma, Caleb Williams.
But if you're going to count Baker Mayfield, you got to count Kyler Murray, bro.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, make it 6.
6 and 7.
I shouldn't do either one of that. That's not fair.
5 of 8 is good, isn't it? It's crazy because the SEC wasn't exactly dominant with the Heisman. You see, like somebody else from somewhere else would win it.
But Tennessee has still never won one. Think about that.
Yeah,
Tennessee has never won a Heisman.
Alabama didn't have one until Saban. I think Mark Ingram was the first one, and now they've obviously had many.
Yeah. So LSU, you go back to Billy Cannon, the first one, and then Joe Burrow, and now Jaden Daniels, the latest. All right, overdue for our final timeout. We'll wrap things up, see if there's any latest news coming at you here on JC and Morgan.
Down here in the South, we don't always see eye to eye. While our taste in college football teams, or what sauce, if any, goes best on a rack of ribs, or what to mix with our Dixie vodka might be up for debate, we can all agree there's nothing better than a Southern tailgate. And like our favorite college teams, our ingredients come from small towns and big cities. They're grown in Southern soil, are crafted by Southern hands, and proudly represent the South in our backyard and beyond. So raise a glass of Dixie Southern Vodka to celebrate being made in America and raised in the South.
Hey, folks, want to tell you about our friends at Titan Construction Group really quick. They're a Mid-Atlantic-based general contractor, specializes in retail, restaurant, and office construction. TCG strives to separate itself from other general contractors by adding value every step of the process. From project budgeting to estimation, value engineering to construction, they focus on those relationships and not the transaction. Titan builds partnerships one project at a time. Among their clients are Starbucks, Crumble Cookie, Blake Pizza, Home Goods, 15 plus years experience, based in Midlothian, Virginia, and contracted in Virginia, West Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. So get on their website, TitanCGinc.com. That's TitanCGinc.com. Get in touch with Brad if you're in need of a general contractor that focuses on going above and beyond for their clients. That's Titan Construction Group, a proud sponsor of the JC and Morgan podcast.
South Carolinians, this message is for you, as well as for people in Georgia, Florida, and Tennessee. If you think you may need work done to your roof or a new roof altogether, there's one simple name to remember: Elite Roofing and Restoration. South Carolina native Jeremy Johnson has been helping people in the South make sure they have the very best people checking on and building new roofs for over 25 years. Fully licensed, bonded, and insured, they provide the best service possible. Call or email today, 678-781-1998. That's 678-781-1998, or you can go to EliteRoofingGA.com. Schedule a no-hassle, free inspection today. Wind damage, hail damage, or just wear and tear. Don't settle for second best. Let Jeremy Johnson and Elite Roofing and Restoration take care of it all for you today.
All right, final few minutes here on the show. By the way, somebody in chat row mentioned Dr. Hatrack. Is that his real name? It is his real name, and I will tell you this, and I know we have a lot of people listening in Atlanta. We also have people that listen maybe 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hours away from Atlanta. If you, are injured and you don't want to go under the knife, which very often makes things worse, and you want to get better, that dude is like a miracle worker. I'm just telling you. I've been seeing him for 10 years. He's the reason why I'm still able to be active, and he's worked on over 400 NFL players. You go in there, it's like a man cave of who's who of former athletes. I don't care where you're living. Just go to the website. You will not find a better person to get you well. SynergyReleaseSports.com. He also works closely with the Eagles and the Chiefs, because everybody knows he's that good. But he's 2 locations here in Atlanta. He's got Alpharetta, obviously north of Atlanta, and he's got Buckhead. So just an extra plug for those fine folks. He's not the only great doctor they have there, but he's been my guy for a long time. And yes, that is his real name, Dr. Hatrack, Hatrak. He's not actually a hat rack. He actually is a doctor. Quick. Can you tell that was an ad lib? Quick news note from our guy there, Pete Thamel at ESPN, who we're going to have on. We were going to have him on before everything went crazy with the Big 12 and Colorado leaving, and that was the finger in the dike was removed and everything just went crazy, and he had to cover some strange stuff in college football this year. This was not a typical year of just, hey, so-and-so's got a knee injury. He'll be out on Saturday. It was just one bomb dropped off after another. But Mississippi State tailback, Joquavius Marks. J doesn't stand for Joquavius, does it? On your
in
JC?
My name?
Yeah.
No, it's
okay,
Joseph.
Joseph, not Joquavius. All right, just confirming. He's accounted for 3,108 yards from scrimmage, 27 touchdowns the last 4 years. He gone. Don't know where he's going. Will Rogers, still don't know where he is going. Could be another SEC school. If it is, he'll break just about every record imaginable. Juice Wells, talented wide receiver of South Carolina. Don't know where he's going yet. And there's still potential. When's the deadline for this thing again, the portal?
Ooh, early January. Now that's the deadline to get in.
That's what I meant, yeah.
People kind of sometimes think that when the portal closes, you can't recruit out of the portal anymore. That's not, you can recruit all you want out of the portal. It's just to get in. Now, the kids that are in the college football playoff national championship, I think they have another week, after that. So in other words, let's say Alabama or let's say Michigan plays Washington. All those guys from those 2 rosters will have an extra week to get in. So that's that's the plan there.
Somebody asked a really good question on game day to Thamel, which was, is the portal like recruiting in that you only get 5 visits the max and your portal visits?
Well, no.
He wasn't sure of the answer. He guessed that was right, but yeah.
My understanding is they changed the rule, and you can go, or they recommended that you can have unlimited official visits now.
Unlimited?
Wow. Which was dumb. You're trying to solve all these problems. That was not a problem. Kids rarely use all 5 official visits, even from high school. But, there'll be one or two that come along to take 11 official visits. And then they'll end up busting, but they'll be bust city and in the portal in a year. But because that's just how that goes sometimes. But no, it's So I think they're good to take as many officials as they can. The question is, can schools squeeze them in right now? I mean, everybody's super busy, super busy.
Well, we got National Signing Day coming up too, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, because if you're a college coach right now, the season ends Thanksgiving weekend or whatever, and if you're in a bowl, you got to get ready for the bowl, right? But you also have signing day coming up, so it's like January used to be with keeping your high school kids intact. You have to re-recruit your entire roster and keep your player. You got to recruit your current players, and then you got to go out the portal and find guys to fill needs on your roster. It is an insane time, and they, the NCAA don't want to do anything about it. They made some adjustments this year, but it's another one of those things where, I could see coaching staffs, Mike, really expanding. You have all these analysts and things like that. I could see the next big wave of coaching staff expansion is going to be personnel to handle personnel across the board.
Yeah. No question. I mean, you need somebody like a director of player personnel, like they have every NFL team has that. That's what you need now in college football. I mean, I understand they're not going to fix NIL anytime soon. It's almost beyond them. But can't they at least fix the calendar? Is that hard to do? Can we not? This is crazy.
It comes to this, letting guys out of their national letter of intent, which is NLI, not NIL. They don't want the paperwork of kids sign in August, which a lot of coaches think August would be a perfect time to have a signing day because it doesn't interfere with the high school season. There's summer official visits now. Most kids have made up their mind by then, and they're just waiting around till December to sign. But you are going to have, with coaching changes that are inevitable, guys needing to get out of that, and that requires paperwork. And, it's pretty simple. If your coach gets fired or leaves, you can get out of your national letter of intent. Well, they don't want that, So it all has to be crammed into this 3-week period, which is, we have March Madness in basketball. We got December Madness in college football, and it's crazy.
It's nuts. Anthony Hopkins had a great line in the movie The Edge. He played this billionaire who was married to Elle Macpherson. Right there, you're winning at life. And he tells Alec Baldwin at some point in the movie, because they're being chased by a grizzly bear for about an hour and a half. I think we can all relate to that. And he says, "Young man, don't ever feel sorry for a man that owns a plane." I realize all these coaches are making millions of dollars, and so nobody feels sorry for them. But this is not like a judge, a Supreme Court judge. It's not a lifetime appointment. Most of these guys are going to get fired, and a lot of them are going to get fired because they have to navigate through all this nonsense, and it's complete chaos, and that makes a hard job even harder. So I don't feel sorry for millionaire coaches, but I do have compassion for the ridiculous nature of this whole setup and how they have to go through it. That is going to do it for us. Don't forget to check out the website, jcandmorgan.com. We'll take your emails there. We'll get back into that next week, as well as a little 5 and dime action. That's what I love about the off season, is that we get to have more great guests. We get to have more fun. You folks still love listening, and so we're going to keep doing it. So we'll have plenty of more news on the portal, bowl games, everything else, as December continues to be a hectic month in college football. Our thanks again to Mad Dog Phil Molinex, always doing a great job producing this fine program. For JC and everybody else, Mike saying so long. We'll see you next week on JC and Morgan.